start talking about Isabella Gianni. She's the star of our retrospective. How did you get to cast her?
We could not find a girl in England that we really liked to play the part. And then Ivory and I think it was his idea that we should try possibly with her. And I called her up from Saks Fifth Avenue in a phone booth. And they'd given her the script and she liked it. And she said she thought she'd want to do it. It was such a wonderful thing to have happen, really. I mean, she was such a wonderful actress and so beautiful and just right in every way. Yeah. And her English is certainly up to the part.
She was up to the part.
We had to slightly change the story. We made her coming from I don't know, Martinique or somewhere like that.
Yes,
actually, Jean Rhys, the hero of that novel, did not come from a French island in the Caribbean.
She was from the Dominican. Is that her mother?
Exactly. Yes.
But that was part.
English.
Was that part of the book though? Where the main character was from England, right? But she wasn't Creole.
No. She I believe she was also from the. I don't remember anymore. Yeah. Possibly.
And do you remember how it was to work with Isabella Gianni? Because in person, so she was here earlier this month, and she's quite an intense person, and it feels like she gives herself 120% in films. How was it?
She does. She did always. And we didn't have much rehearsals. She didn't feel that she needed that. There were rehearsals on the set the day that we were shooting, or the scene that we were shooting. She would rehearse with everybody else, obviously, but she just really kind of jumped in.
And then you brought a wonderful cast of actors, Alan Bates and Maggie Smith. They're all quite wonderful too. And are these people that you thought about early on for the film, or Alan? Both of them were very well known.
I think Alan Bates. We thought about him quite early, probably at the very beginning, and the others just came on. I mean, the French actors I would not really have known about.
Suzanne Flon.
Particularly Suzanne Flon and Daniel Mesguich, for instance, who we used again and again and again in our films. The fellow at the end who says there's nothing beautiful anymore. Yeah. And so they were all new to me, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. And this was your first film shot in Paris, and most of your work before that was made in India. Is that right? And then your first film was in
Well, we made this film in 1980, and then the work that we had before that, the work that we had done, was not in England as people would think.
Right.
The English films were quite a few years off.
Right. Yeah.
No, our films have been made either here in New York, or in this country, or in India.
In India, yeah.
Right.
But did you know Paris well, though? Because it feels like it's...
I
had
been to Paris many times, and I knew it, yes. I mean, as well as you can, as a foreigner. I never had lived there, and in the sense that, well, when we were making the film, I lived there, and then later on, we really did live there, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right, and after that, in fact.
Yeah. And how did you meet Pierre? Because so most of the crew, as I understand, is French. And so how did you meet Pierre? Because Pierre was already had worked quite on a lot of films at that
Well,
point.
again, he was. It was the French producers suggested it, and I remember we went up to meet him. We drove up Ambert Valzandro, like 125 miles an hour to Normandy, where Pierre Lund was making a film with Jane Birkin, and I went to meet him there, somewhere in Normandy, I don't know where it was. And there was Jane Birkin also, I'd never met before.
Yeah. And you went on to make several films together.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah, 4, I think.
4, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there was this film, and then we made Morris with him. We made Le Divorce. We made Jefferson in Paris. And then we made another Merchant Ivory film in India with him that Ishmael directed, called Cotton Mary.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
It was a 5th film, yeah.
And we'll open it up for questions in a minute. But I was curious about the book because I think it must not have been necessarily an easy book to turn into a screenplay, right?
Well, I didn't write the script. I mean, our longtime writer, Ruth Zabella, wrote it. Actually, she was against the idea of our making it.
Oh, really?
But she was reading Jean Rhys, I guess all her novels. So anyway, that novel, and she left that novel lying around somewhere, and I think in the house in Claverack. And I picked it up and read it, and I loved it immediately, even grim as it is, because I've always been interested in Paris in the 20s. And I thought immediately, this would be a wonderful film to make. And she said, oh, Jim, I don't know, it's so low-spirited. But anyway, I convinced her, and we did make it, and had very good French partners.
Yeah,
and it was sort of a turning point for me also, I think. It was the first, I really feel that this film was the first time that I kind of got it all together, in the sense of all the different elements seemed to have a kind of, for me anyway, I had found some kind of harmony, visually and the acting, the story, and music, the locations.
Let's take a few questions. If you want to raise your hand, there are microphones in the aisle, and we can bring one down to you. There's, I think, someone with long black hair.
I want to ask a question. Does this film seem another kind or a different kind of Merchant Ivory movie?
Yes.
I felt that strongly as I watched it. Anyway, go ahead.
As a Merchant Ivory.
It's not your usual Merchant Ivory movie, no. Well, it's pretty grim also.
It is pretty grim.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ivory, for being here and for the beautiful film. I just wanted to ask you, of course, Isabelle Adjani's English was certainly up to the task of being the lead in a primarily English-speaking film. However, for someone whose English is a second language, did you have to direct her any differently than the other actors? And I was also wondering if you could talk just very briefly about what it was like working with Alan Bates.
Well, I didn't know. The fact that English was not her first language, and she knew it very well. I didn't have to tell her, put the emphasis here, or this word. I was not correcting her all the time about how to speak, or how to the actual emphasis that lines would need. She had all that. I mean, it was there, and so it wasn't difficult working with her. And I worked many times with, and particularly in India, with actors whose English was not their first language, and it's really actors quite soon are able to somehow get it, and you don't have to. It's not a labor. For them to get it right, or you to agree that it's right. I mean, they pretty much do it well right off, and so did she.
Yeah, she's quite good. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
quite good. And Alan
And
Bates.
that's for Alan Bates. Well, I guess pretty much he was the first of our English heroes. If you want to call Heider a hero, and he was a wonderful person to work with. I mean, extremely easygoing and easy to be with, and no problems with him.
His performance.
I mean, when people ask what was it like to work with such and such a person, and they're expecting me to say, well, there was this and there was that, and I wish they hadn't done this and so on. I don't have those kinds of feelings about most of my big English actors that I've worked with, or Alan Bates. They are so extraordinarily professional as actors, so totally committed to what they're doing, and so aware of what they're doing, and aware of what you want, or agreeing on the whole to what you want. And he was like that always.
I mean, his performance his character is very interesting. I mean, people were laughing when he was commenting that, you know, these women actually come on to him, and that's which he very much believed too. So it's an interesting performance because it's you kind of question everybody's intentions, really, I think, throughout the film. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there were things that there are always things that you know, you have to change a little bit and move them a little bit this way or that. But I believe very, very much in allowing actors really to bring up from the depths of their being the part. I mean, they are artists, and let them show you their art. That's how I believe in working with actors, and you can do that very much with English actors and with French actors. Well, American too. I mean, everybody. I mean, you just let them show it to you what it is they feel they want the part to be, and unless they go wildly off, I mean, you're lucky.
So you have it's a faith in actors.
Yes.
And a trust.
Yeah.
Right here, there's a question.
Why is it that every film Johnny appears in, as lovely and splendid as she is, because she appears...
Can you just... Yeah, thank you.
Why is it that... it's a pleasure to see you, by the way. Great privilege. It seems to me, during this festival of Ajani, every film she appears in that I see, she's demeaned and degraded and reduced and made into nothingness. And it's upsetting for a woman today. And I don't want to be a feminist, but I can't help it. She's demeaned, and in this film she again ends up demeaned and made into nothing, while she's a woman of fortitude and some grace and some talents.
Well, that's Jean Rhys. And this is Jean Rhys's, sort of, all Jean Rhys's novels are like that. If you know Jean Rhys and you've read the other novels, I mean, she did get attached to some pretty terrible men. And particularly, I mean, the historical background of this film and the stories, it's pretty well known, and she had a fearful relationship with a famous man. So, I mean, I'm just, what can I do? I have to do Jean Rhys as she wanted it to be done.
Such a pity, though.
I think there must be some exceptions to that. There must be some other films of Isabel's where she was happy. No?
Most of it, she has a very good comic streak actually, but she didn't exploit it that much. But I think she actually looked for characters like that as well throughout her career. I mean, she did Camille Claudel later, and that's a project that she wanted to do herself, and she produced it and wanted to play Camille Claudel. But it's an interesting point. That's the role that she was offered, but I think that's the roles that she was looking for as well.
I saw her today in a different way. By now, after all these years, and goodness, we made this 40 years ago, I've seen it many, many times. But I never really watched her carefully when she sings that song, Par. And today I did. And I paid very close attention to it. She's absolutely marvelous at that. That's a wonderful thing she does there. So.
Sir?
When you first met Ishmael
Can you
Merchant,
just hold on for the microphone? Thank you.
when you first met Ishmael Merchant, was it love at first sight, or did it take you boys a while to figure out things?
Well, at first sight, I knew this was a most interesting young man that I had just come back from working in India, where I'd met many other Indians, and I met Ismael here, and we got to talking, and he was doing other things and working on other kinds of films. But yes, I was immediately, I thought, this is a great person, great guy. Sure, of course.
So it was a coup de foudre, love at first sight,
No,
as I suggested.
not really, not really. But he grew on me.
Ah, what a shame that he's gone. But you
He grew on a lot of people. So that was.
There's a question in the all the way in the back.
Yes, good evening. I would like to ask you this important question on the sense of cruelty that there is for this woman, in the sense that whether it was for richer or for poorer, she was going to have no true happiness. My question to you is, based on the author, did you emphasize the author's life experience, or when you did the direction, you took your own approach in the perception of that novel?
Well, let me just say, in a way, you would almost have to tone it down. I mean, Jean Rhys's experiences, her life experiences, which come out in her fiction, and are very, very strong in Quartet. You don't. You have to be careful. You have to think about your audience a bit. You couldn't make Heidler. I mean, Heidler was really beastly, and the whole situation was a horrible thing, that them living together and Lois and all the rest of it, and what happened at the end. And you had to be careful. You had to tone it down a bit. We had to tone it down a bit. Otherwise, we would turn off the audience. And in fact, it was not a film, even though it won at Cannes for Best Actress for Isabelle, and certainly much was made of it when it came out in France. It was never a popular film. It is just too depressing. And I think today, I mean, I'd be surprised. I would think many, many women seeing this film would be outraged by this film. They couldn't help but be. How could things have been like that? We did slightly tone it down. You have, when things are really terrible, sometimes in a novel, you can't really show it. It will turn the audience off. So mainly from your main characters, or from the film itself, you just have to tone things down a bit, and we did here. I mean, for instance, an example of this in another film of ours was Surviving Picasso. We read, or we learned from Françoise Gillot's book, Life with Picasso, that at one moment in her life with Picasso, he stubbed his cigarette out on her cheek. Now, you couldn't put that in the film. If we'd done that, it would have turned everybody off horribly against the character of Picasso. It was so monstrous. So you have to tone things down as you go along. Otherwise, you'll really anger your audience, I think.
We'll stay in the back. There's a picture, a hand up right in the middle of the theater.
The costuming and the presentation of 1920s Paris. And I'm curious to know if you got inspiration from that, mostly from the book or from other research. You mentioned your own interest in 1920s Paris. How did you put that all together?
Well, I didn't put it together. It's the we had a wonderful costume designers, wonderful hair and makeup people, terrific French art director. It's they who did this. It was their gift to me, just as the actors acting is a gift to me. I didn't know that much about. I mean, I'd always been interested as an American, because Americans in Paris in the 20s and all the rest of that, Scott Fitzgerald, etc., Hemingway, all that. That had always interested me, but I didn't really know much about it. And I had no real visualization of it. I mean, you would see photographs and books and whatever. I mean, you had an idea of how it might have looked. But really, it was made by the people who are there in the credits, the designers. It wasn't because of me that much. I didn't know that much, and this has been true of all my films. I don't know how people dressed and looked and acted and in certain periods. I didn't know much about Edwardian England. I had not very much interest in Edwardian England, but I know we did a pretty good job with it. But that's not because of me. I'm just taking it all in and using it and happy to get it.
Well, you knew how to surround yourself with the best people then.
Well, yeah. You hear about people, and if somebody's really good, you use them again and again, like Pierre Lum. I mean, once you've established a relationship with a very good artist who works for you in a film, you want to use that person again and again, and you try to do that. Very often you can't. They may go on to all kinds of other jobs and fame and so on, and they're not available anymore. But at Merchant Ivory prices.
There's a question right here.
It was a pleasure to watch the movie and obviously to have you here. And my question is kind of on the question that you were talking about 2 questions ago, where you had the darkness in the movie. And my question is, even when you're watching a movie that had that much darkness in it, seeing the way that you portrayed the costumes, seeing the way that you did the cinematography, seeing the beauty in the film almost sort of mitigates the darkness to it. Was that done as a conscious effort, or was that, just the way that it happened to work out?
Well, it wasn't accidental, no. You do try to make things as in all the different areas of design anyway. You want to make it as wonderful as possible. I mean, you intend that. Does that answer your question? Probably not.
It's almost like the beauty made up for the darkness, because you're watching such a beautifully made movie that.
Well, you're also seeing a world that we don't know much about. It's a long time since 100 years since the 20s in Paris, and we don't know anything about that. So what you're seeing there is all new, and I mean, some of the things that are happening are pretty desperate, but the world is very, very interesting that these things are happening in. So, yeah, well.
So we have time for a couple more questions, right here in the middle.
Hi, I had met with Ishmael because he went to school with my dad, and I used to see Ruth all the time in the neighborhood because we all lived in the same neighborhood. I was just wondering, do you feel a creative void in all of your film projects without the 2 of them? Sorry, sensitive question.
Well, there haven't been any without. I mean, the only film that I made without, and then Ishmael was in fact involved at the beginning of that, and so was Ruth, because she wrote the script. The only film that I've made without them was City of Final Destination in Argentina. And but since then, yes, I very much I miss them terribly. And Ishmael, by dying prematurely, I mean, there were other films being planned that I'm sure we would have made. There was this for years we were trying to make a Shakespeare film out of the play Richard II. And if Ishmael had not died, we would have made that 5 years ago. And so yes, in that way I do miss them, of course. I mean, I miss them as people, as my closest associates and friends, but I miss them in that way, but naturally, but also, yeah, in a work way, of course.
Hi, my name is Valerie, and I'm here just to tell you that as many people here probably feel the same way. I grew up watching your films. I was totally inspired by your films. Sorry, suddenly I'm quite emotional, but I was so inspired that I made the film industry my profession for many years. Worked with Jeff Berg and Rosalie Swedlin at ICM, and then with Michael Ovitz at AMG. Before that all fell apart. And it was due to films that you made.
I'm sorry?
It was due to films that you made that inspired me to make a career. Of course, since then I've gone into real estate and I'm here in Manhattan. But I'm sitting here and you are my living legend. And so I'm here because I wanted to see you in person.
I'm still here, amazingly.
Are you working on anything?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I am. I recently wrote a screenplay for Alexander Payne, which was based on a short story that came out of the New Yorker a couple of weeks after Ruth died, and which he optioned back in 2013. And I wrote a screenplay for him. And then I think I'm going to be involved in writing the screenplay of a French novel. And I'm involved in a screenplay of another novel by Peter Cameron called Coral Glen. So I have these three projects. But I mean, directing, no. I mean, I don't know to what extent I could get out there and do it. This is temporary, all this, you guys. I have a terrible back right now, and it'll go away.
Can you tell us which French novel you're working on, or is it?
I really shouldn't, because the deal has not been.
Okay.
I've been asked to do it. But we haven't. But it's a famous French novel.
We'll be patient. Let's take one more question.
Yeah. I'm from India. I think I came to your office some time ago. I think 57th Street. I'd meet with Ishmael. He was not there. My question is, now that Ishmael is gone, are you interested in doing some more projects involving with India? Or that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, you guys started with a low budget. Now you became legends. How did you do that?
Well, let's talk about India first. I haven't been to India since 2006, and I really don't want to do more work in India. Everybody I knew is gone. The India I knew is gone, at least the metropolitan parts of it. I don't feel like doing any more, and there. And then, I don't know. I mean, everybody starts out like we do. You start out making low-budget movies, and if you're successful with one or two of them, then you will attract more money, And if you're more or less successful with the next phase and you don't have too many flops, you may get big money finally, and then of course you most often ruin yourself and never do another film, but that didn't happen with us. We were fully funded by the studios right up to almost to the very end, through The White Countess, which is the second to the last film we made. So, I don't know, you just start out with little money and gradually you get more. I mean, what can I say? This is true of any business, right? You could be making socks.